Hello my friends, so today this video is going to be more or less questions for Tom that you as the viewers or my friends and my family want to know. So Tom, we got some interesting questions for you.
Very good.
Of course I have them written down, so okay. Question 1. Can hawks see at night?
Yes.
Do they hunt at night?
No.
And why is that?
Well, their eyesight is not, it's like our eyesight. It's not as good as night, but they can see at night. But they hunt just daylight hours. They're diurnal, and owls are nocturnal.
Okay. All right. Question 2. What is your favorite bird to work with? Is there a particular...
Favorite bird to work with? I'm partial to bald eagle because it's the national bird. It's a bird that's been threatened many times, pesticide and all sorts of problems. But I think my favorite bird to work with for education is the turkey vulture.
All right. Question 3. How long does it take for a bird, and this is probably going to vary, learn to trust you?
Depends on the age of the bird. And one thing I always try to make clear to people I'm talking to about this particular subject, when I work with a bird for education, it's always a bird that cannot be released back to the wild. It's a non-releasable bird because the focus here is to I call it rescue, rehabilitate, and release back to the wild. So birds that cannot be released back to the wild, I try to use for education. And depending on the age of the bird, usually young birds that haven't been in contact with people are the easiest to get confide in you. Older birds have their old habits, and it's pretty, especially a bird like an eagle, they just won't accept people. So a younger bird takes a while, 3, 4, 5 months, sometimes even longer.
So it's just like anything else, like a dog training a puppy.
Absolutely.
And the same idea. Children. What are owl pellets?
Owl pellets. Yeah, owl pellets. They're an important function. And most people see an owl pellet, I just happen to have a few here. When they look at an owl pellet, the first thing they think about is, why does the owl or the hawk or the eagle have to do that? And most people call them owl pellets. But all birds of prey, even coyotes, foxes, cats, regurgitate a pellet they spit up. And what happens when the owl swallows a mouse or the hawk swallows a small bird, the next day opens his mouth, it regurgitates that pellet. And there's a function to this. It keeps the digestive tract clean. So if I took a rehabilitated bird in for help and I started feeding it hamburger or chicken meat or things like that with no casting, no roughage for a pellet, they get sick pretty quick. So the pellet is real important. So he swallows a mouse, the next morning the bones and the fur of that animal are spit up or regurgitated. Keeps the digestive tract clean.
Oh, okay. That's very cool. I'll leave a close-up clip of that later. Okay, question 5. Any person that doesn't know you or sees you on the street, what would be the most common question a person would ask you?
Why do you do that? It's probably the most common. Why do you care about? And I try to put it in perspective. It's not the bird of prey. It's what it represents. It represents the environment, which we are really destroying. I mean, the environment has taken a real beating lately, especially a lot of the things we're doing now. Windmills, solar panels, cell phone towers are all taking a toll on wildlife, especially solar panels. So when you ask me that question, why do you do that? Whether I was working with songbirds or reptiles or birds of prey, it's my contribution to try to help the environment.
Now I've heard stories, you bring up solar panels, from a distance to a bird of prey, or even any other bird, it looks like a body of water?
Absolutely. There's a good example on Route 2 in Athol. You're heading west on Route 2, and the whole side of a mountain, you can see it from a distance, is one big glare. It's a solar panel field. And when that sun hits it at 9 o'clock in the morning, it just glistens. It looks like a big lake. So especially waterfowl, that to them is a lake.
Okay. Now, question number 6. What is the average lifespan of a bird of prey in the wild?
In the wild, good question. Not very long. Usually rule of thumb is the smaller the bird, the less likelihood it's going to have a long lifespan. The larger the bird, the longer. For instance, a bald eagle will live a lot longer than a saw-whet owl because of his size and his ability. So the smaller birds are more, tend to be more in harm's way, so to speak. So the larger birds live a lot longer. But in the wild, a bald eagle lives 25, 30 years. I had a bald eagle that was born here, and it lived over 20 years nesting on Lake Nubanusset in Hancock, New Hampshire. So they can live a long, long time. Smaller birds, 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. That's about it.
Now in captivity, it's certainly going to be a lot more.
A lot longer, probably triple that.
Wow.
Yeah. Not that I advocate, keeping your bird in a
right.
captive environment.
All right, this is a real interesting. I think I know the answer to this one, but now, why do smaller birds harass birds of prey?
You'll only see, say, a blackbird, a red-winged blackbird, kingbirds are known to do that. You'll see a red-winged blackbird or a small bird harassing a red-tailed hawk or an eagle, but you'll never see one harassing a sharp-shinned hawk or a peregrine falcon because they know that bird could turn on a dime and catch them. Bald eagle's just big and heavy, a red-tailed hawk, same way, so they just pester them. So if that red-tail flies over their nesting territory, they'll fly up and challenge them, chase them away.
Okay. Question 8. How big and how heavy is the average bald eagle's nest?
Yeah, the bald eagle builds the biggest nest of any bird, and they'll average quite a bit, and here's the reason. The bald eagle will utilize that nest year after year after year. And I mentioned a bald eagle could live 25, 30 years in the wild, and 20 years of breeding, that nest gets, in fact, usually the tree that the nest in falls before the nest does, because it rots from the sheer weight. But the nest can weigh 3 or 4 tons easy, and it could span 6 or 7 feet across and 5 or 6 feet deep.
Well, I was going to say, they're pretty deep.
Pretty deep.
If you looked out and saw the nest, you're not probably going to see the babies in that nest until they're a lot larger.
A lot larger. There's a cup in the nest that usually goes down a foot or 2.
Because the video that I already put out, all you could see is the female's head.
That's right.
That's it. You know what I mean? When she was sitting on the nest, you couldn't see all of her head. Okay. Question 9. A breeding pair of birds of prey, if they're unsuccessful having young, will they rebreed again?
Depending on the species, but yes, and depending on the time of year. For instance, if they go full cycle, which say an eagle, 35 days for incubation, chicks hatch, and a week later the chicks die, they will not recycle and rebreed. But if they lay a couple of eggs in the nest and a raccoon goes up the tree and destroys the eggs, they'll probably recycle real quickly. But songbirds are different. They might have 2 or 3 broods of chicks all year. They'll raise a clutch, and right away they'll lay eggs and have another clutch. Birds of prey, 1 clutch per year.
Okay. Question 10. Over the years of you doing this, what is probably the most interesting rescue and success story that you have?
Wow. I've had a few good ones, but the best one was just recently, last week in Northampton. There was a red-tailed hawk trapped in a bell tower of an abandoned church, and it was probably 80, 100 feet up, and the people that owned the building screened it in to keep the pigeons out. Well, it didn't keep the pigeons out. The pigeons got in there, and the red-tailed hawk decided, I'm going to get the pigeons. Well, he got into that building. So with the help of the Northampton Fire Department, what a great bunch of people, I'll tell you. They came in, and I should say I assisted them because they did 90% of the work. we got in the bucket, which was one of those white knuckle experiences, and we went up in that bucket, and Eric, the firefighter that was in the bucket with me, was able to get that bucket right up against the window. We were able to reach in and remove that red-tailed hawk, which was an adult male. And what was really interesting, all the time we were doing that, the female was on top of the steeple, watching everything going on. So once we got the male out of there, he was big and fat because there was 5 or 6 dead pigeons inside that bell tower. Able to get the bird down, checked him out right in the ground in Northampton, and turned him loose right there, so he was with its mate. But that was probably by far the most exciting experience I ever had, just being up that high. But I was with the experts, so it went really, really well.
Now, just a side question from that. Now, is it common for a red-tailed to even eat birds?
No, not really. But if they have a situation where something like that, chicken in a chicken coop, they'll do that. I've had a lot of birds, especially accipiters, Cooper's hawks, goshawks, will literally go right in that chicken coop after the bird, and then of course they panic and they can't get out. But there was a real small hole up at the bell tower at the church where the pigeons were able to get in. Somehow that red-tail squeezed in, just couldn't figure how to get back out.
Well, that's a great story.
Oh, it was a great day too.
Okay. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, and
You're
for
welcome.
all that you do. Yep, and we got one more little side story that Tom wants to tell you about.
You know, it's rewarding. I do a lot of educational programs for the kids. The kids love it and I love it. And what's really rewarding is when I get responses back. And I'll give you a good example. I did a birthday party for a young girl in Hatfield. And I wish I could remember her name because she was just a little sweetheart. And I did the program, and the mother called me and said her daughter loved owls. Could you bring some birds down to her birthday party, which I did down at the Whately ball field. And when I was done with the program, this young lady, this young girl, 8 years old, got up and addressed the people there. There was about 50 people there. And she said, in lieu of presents, I asked people that come to my party to donate money, and the reason I asked them to donate money to me was because I wanted to give it to Mr. Ricardi to help the birds, and she gave me a check for over $500. And we're talking about a little 8-year-old girl that did this, and I was speechless because this little girl thought more of the birds than she did of her own birthday party, and it was really great. But you know, when I go to the schools and I get things like this, where the kids always send me great pictures. These are from Arcadia, East Hampton, Arcadia Audubon, the kids at the day camp. And you can see the pictures they send me. I've got hundreds of them, and I save them because they mean a lot. And it just shows me that I got through to this child. She saw a bird that she liked and she drew a picture of it, and that makes it all worthwhile.
Well, another successful day with Tom. Tom, I love it up here. I love coming up here and spending time with you, and I just want to thank you very much
John,
for letting us
anytime.
come up
Thank
here.
you.
And it's, as you all know, Greg is here today with us, and thank you, Greg, for coming out
Same,
here and
Greg.
helping us, filming us this today. And
Love it up here.
next time you see Greg, I'll probably be catching bigger fish than him, but we'll see Greg in a couple weeks.
Just wait.
Thanks, Tom.